Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the matriarchs, the women we meet when we meet the patriarchs in the book of Genesis. And we're continuing our study of Sarah. We'll end our study of Sarah today, although we're going to be talking about it when we talk about Hagar. We'll talk about Hagar next time. Amazing person in her own right. That we don't think about enough, whom we don't think about enough. But we're going to talk about the legacy of Sarah today. And I want to read Hebrews chapter 11, verse 11. And I'm going to read through verse 16. By faith, even Sarah herself received the ability to conceive, even beyond the proper time of life, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore also there was born of one man, and him as good as dead at that, as many descendants as the stars of heaven in number, and as innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. All these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them, and having welcomed them from a distance, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. Those who say such things make it clear they are seeking a country of their own. And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, and for he has prepared a city for them. All those inspiring, lofty things that are said about people of faith are said immediately following Sarah's faith. And so she's the last person in our mind when we read about these things. And every one of these things apply to Sarah. Sarah is such an important example to us, who teaches us not just about faith, but about submission as well. Because all of us understand that to submit does not mean to be a doormat. It means to follow the leadership and to be respectful. And so when we're told in 1 Peter chapter 3 to fear God but honor the king, I mean, what does that mean? How can we be respectful of the king, of the government, and yet reserve our actual fear for God? And so that in the moment, when we have to choose between God and the state, there's no question what we're going to do. Well, Sarah's the one who teaches us that. She's the first person, I should say, who teaches us that. There are a lot of people who teach us that. No one better than Daniel. But she's the first person who teaches us that because she is a woman of faith and also a woman of respect and submission, the way a wife is supposed to be in her home. And yet she's a woman of great agency and influence in her home. And we've seen that. We've seen that agency and that influence. She is an assertive woman, an assertive person. And that doesn't mean she lacks faith or lacks submission or lacks respect because she's given as the example of those things. I don't think we appreciate her example enough. The Bible tells us to. The Bible holds her up and says, look at her and her example. Because this is how you're supposed to be. Was it right for her to run Hagar off? No, it wasn't. Not the first time, anyway. The second time, God said, "Do what she says," um, and God had to intervene in the life of Hagar. And was it right for her to have these knee-jerk reactions to no to Sarah? I mean, to Hagar, excuse me, and to Ishmael? Probably not. We weren't there. Neither you nor I were there, and things may have built up over time. She's not perfect. No one in Scripture but Jesus is perfect. But in her imperfection, she shows us imperfect Christians what submission looks like and what faith looks like as well, because she's mentioned there right alongside Abraham's example, embedded in Abraham's example. She's the heart of Abraham's example because she's right in the dead center of it. And it's her giving birth to Isaac that prompts the writer of Hebrews to go off um, on his paean, on his praise of faith. in these people of faith. Okay. Talk about Hagar next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.